Your brain is just like a baby. Huh? What the heck is that supposed to mean? What I mean is that your brain is very impressionable, and there are pathways in your brain that are constantly being formed and strengthened by every thought and feeling that you have and by every action that you take, and you don't even realize that this is going on. So it stands to reason that the behaviors, attitudes, and philosophies of the people that we spend time with are going to have a direct effect on our own behaviors, attitudes, and philosophies because these pathways are constantly being formed. And again, we don't even realize that it's going on. But if we want to live the fulfilling life that we were meant to live, we need to understand this and we need to start being intentional with others. And we'll get into that, we'll discuss what that means. We'll talk about how to spot red flag people and green flag people. But first, before we do that, take a minute and think about 3 people that you spend the most time with. And think about if these are the people that you want shaping your brain. Keep these people in mind, and hopefully that will help you to relate to some of these concepts that we're going to be talking about. So what does it mean to be intentional with others? Well, in my last video, we discussed adopting a skeptical mindset when it comes to the media that we are consuming. And that got me to thinking, don't we also need to adopt a skeptical mindset toward our relationships? And then I thought, well, how skeptical do we really need to be? And then, well, where do we cross the line from having a healthy level of skepticism to all of a sudden we're living a Unabomber-esque existence? And I know that's an extreme example, but being skeptical of people, being skeptical of society can be a slippery slope unless you're practicing your deliberate thinking skills, because all of a sudden you get hurt by one person and you decide to cut everybody off. And that can happen pretty easily. That's why we're going to stop. We're going to deliberately think about red flag and green flag people so we don't end up going down that slippery slope. So first let's talk about red flag people. And these are the negative influencers in your life, but they can be hard to spot sometimes. And often they're the people you spend a lot of time with, and they're hard to spot because you become desensitized to them. Because you're around them so much, you don't even realize the negative impact, the negative influence they're having on you. And of course, the changes that are made to your brain, to the pathways, happen so slowly over time that you don't often know how negative your thinking has become until it's too late. So before I give some examples of red flag people, I would like to also introduce a powerful quote from Dr. Maya Angelou, which will help put this in perspective. She said, "When people show you who they are, believe them." And I think this is very powerful because we often see people the way we would like them to be, the way we think they can be, the way we think they should be, instead of the way that they actually are. And this is how we end up being influenced by red flag people a lot of the times. So when I say red flag person, generally speaking, what I'm talking about is someone you should be especially skeptical of, and perhaps you even need to cut them out of your life. But that's up to you. I can't, I don't want to sit here and have you take any of these examples and decide to just willy-nilly cut someone out of your life. It's something you're going to have to really deliberately think about. But it might be necessary. And some things you're going to want to pay attention to are how does this person make you feel when you're around them? How do they react when you're doing well? How do they react when you're not doing well? And look at them and try to identify what their life philosophy is and think, is that a life philosophy you want to adopt and that you want to live by? So let's get into 3 examples. These are actually examples of emotional abuse, but I carried them over into this identifying red flag people. And I think these are the 3 examples that are most applicable to what we're talking about today. So red flag person number 1 is a person who is routinely inconsistent. So this person talks a good game, but their actions are not consistent with their words. And of course, we've all been stood up by someone in some point in our life, whether that be a friend or a significant other or a date or whatever it might be. We've been stood up by people, and this is definitely an inconsistent person. But those are the ones who are easy to spot. The ones that I'm talking about are not so easy to spot. So let's talk about Joe for a minute. Joe is an imaginary red flag person with a very original name. So Joe's inconsistencies aren't as easy to spot unless you're being deliberately skeptical. Joe's the guy who he's buddy buddy with everyone. He's very charismatic. He makes you think that he's trustworthy, or he seems trustworthy, and he makes you feel good about yourself because he often offers you false compliments and other ego pleasers that make you feel liked. So that makes you feel good and you like to hang around with Joe. But this is what makes Joe so dangerous, because they go undetected, but they can end up crushing your self-esteem and confidence if you don't stop and see who they really are. Because if you start to pay attention to Joe, you'll see that in challenging situations, you'll notice that he's quick to place the blame on anybody but himself. So Joe has done a good job of making you trust him, but when the chips are down, he's going to be the first one to throw you under the bus without hesitation. And that's going to leave you asking yourself, what did I do to deserve this? What's wrong with me? And of course, the answer to both of those questions is nothing. It had nothing to do with you. It was all about Joe and his own issues. But that's how this type of red flag person, the inconsistent person, can crush your self-esteem and your confidence. Red flag person number 2 is someone who bulldozes over your needs. Even when you make your needs known, they don't really care. They clearly could care less. They are only interested in their own wants and needs and in serving themselves, and they really have no regard for anyone else's needs or boundaries. And in fact, when you make your needs or boundaries known, they will call you selfish, they will call you mean, they will call you bitchy, who knows, even worse than that. They'll make you feel guilty about it at any rate. And if you're not being careful, if you're not deliberately skeptical of this person, you might buy into these accusations and you might start to believe that you are selfish, and you might start second guessing yourself, and that's why these people are dangerous. So let's talk about Jane, another imaginary red flag person with another very unusual name, Jane. So Jane wants you to come help her paint her living room. The problem is that you are super busy at work, you have a big project, and you're giving all of your extra time to that project right now. You explain this to Jane, and she turns your valid reason into an attack against her. And she goes on and says, no one ever helps me, you never spend any time with me, all you care about is your career, and she's trying to lay a guilt trip on you. Now, commenting on the disappointment that you can't help her is not the problem, because she could have said instead, I understand that you need to work, I was just hoping we could spend some time together, so I'm a little disappointed, so let's find a time that we can get together. In this example, Jane is acknowledging your needs, and she's trying to find a solution to make the situation work for both of you. But the red flag Jane is simply trying to manipulate you by making you feel guilty so that you will bend to her wants and needs. And she thinks nothing of bulldozing over your needs in the process. So that's red flag person number 2, the bulldozer. Red flag person number 3 is someone who tries to control your decisions. And we're not talking about someone who's giving you advice, honest feedback, constructive criticism. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about someone who controls your decisions in subtle ways so you don't even realize that it's happening. They do this by criticizing your decisions, belittling your decisions, or by making passive-aggressive comments. So these subtle forms of manipulation can leave you doubting yourself. And if this goes on long enough, you will start second guessing yourself so much that you won't even know which way is up, and you're going to stop trusting yourself. When you stop trusting yourself, you're going to start to forget who you are and what's really important to you. So this type of red flag person, the person who is trying to control your decisions, is very dangerous as well for those reasons. So let's talk about Zelda, another red flag person, but this time she has a little more common name. So let's say that Zelda is a coworker that you have, you're working on a project and you've gone to her for help. And you're coming at this project from a completely different angle than Zelda would have come at it from, but it's just as good. Maybe it's even a better angle, but it's not how it should be done according to Zelda. So you propose an idea to Zelda, and she says, do you think you have enough experience to handle that? I don't know. I think you better just forget about it. She's criticizing you, of course. So then you introduce another idea to Zelda, and she actually calls another colleague of the two of yours, and she says, Amanda came up with a brand new way of doing Y. What do you think? Would you do it that way? And you can tell she's really sarcastic about it, and she's belittling you in front of someone else, making you feel small, and making you feel like your idea is not important or doesn't have any validity. So for some reason you're still in this meeting. Why you haven't left yet, I don't know. So you propose one last idea, and without even trying to understand your reasoning or where you're coming from, she says, yeah, right, that's not going to work with our clients. I guess you can try it, but it seems like it's going to be just a waste of time. This, of course, is a passive-aggressive comment meant to cut your self-esteem and make you back off of your idea. And by the time you leave this meeting, you don't even know which way is up. You're totally deflated. You are not going to do anything probably with the ideas that you brought into the meeting, and they might be very good ideas. They might be great for the company, great for your clients, whatever. But they're never going to see the light of day if you let Zelda get the better of you. So that's why you need to be deliberately skeptical of her, and you need to believe her when she shows you who she is. Okay, so that's the 3 types of red flag people. How do we spot a green flag person? Well, hopefully you're fortunate enough to have a Pat in your life. Pat is a green flag person, and after your meeting with Zelda, you go to Pat for a pep talk and some sage advice, and Pat has 3 attributes that make him your go-to person. Number 1, Pat is genuinely wants what is best for you and often encourages you to take care of yourself. Number 2, Pat challenges you to grow and develop, and Pat's someone that you often engage in meaningful conversations with and thought-provoking conversations. And number 3, Pat is a person you admire. Pat has qualities that you would like to see in yourself. But here's the kicker. Pat also admires you, and that's also important. So it's not just someone you idolize, it's someone you have a mutual respect with. They admire you, and they also see your spark of greatness. So there's more qualities than that, but those are 3 important qualities to have in a green flag person. So now that you know kind of what to look for in a red flag and green flag person, what's our call to action? Going forward, we're going to start rooting out the red flag people in our lives so that we can start living the fulfilling life we were meant to live. And then we're going to decide, after we figure out who these red flag people are, we have to decide if we're going to cut them out of our lives, or if we can't, because sometimes you can't, if it's a coworker or a family member or something, you can set boundaries to make sure that they are not influencing you. They are not forming the pathways in your brain. So that takes a little work, but it can be done. And we also need to seek out and recognize the green flag people in our lives and find more ways to spend time with them so that their influence can override the influence of the red flag people. And yes, sometimes the green flag people are going to be hard to find in real life, but if you can't find someone that you can be with face to face, you can turn to books, you can turn to blogs, podcasts, whatever form of content you prefer. You can turn to people, and even though you can't be face to face with them, as long as they possess the 3 qualities of a green flag person, they can still have a very positive influence on your life. So I have put together a worksheet for you that summarizes this post or this video and helps you practice spotting red flag and green flag people. And you might also want to check out another post that I wrote, another video that I have if you haven't already. It's one of the first ones that I put together, but it's called 3 People Who Will Help You Become Your Best Self. And that focuses more on the green flag people. We focus a little bit more on the red flag people in this post. So you might want to check that one out. And until next time, stay curious.